Hi, and welcome to You Haven't Seen What? A married couple's quest to rectify the wrongs of their partner never seeing culturally relevant movies. We're back. I'm Joelle.
I'm Parry.
And yeah, we're back. We had a little hiatus. A lot of hiatus.
Well, there was a little bit going on as the year closed out, but hey, happy holidays.
Happy New Year.
Yes, we are doing this actually on New Year's Eve as we do the coquito countdown.
Oh boy, you and the coquito countdown.
Yes, would you like to tell for the audience, for those who don't know what coquito is?
Sure, it's generally a Puerto Rican-based concoction made up of cream of coconut and several different types of milk and Puerto Rican rum. But I'm Jamaican, so we use Jamaican rum.
Appleton, of course.
Appleton, of course.
Yes, because there may be other Jamaican rums, but there are no other Jamaican rums.
There are no other Jamaican rums. It's definitely Appleton all the way, and they didn't even pay us for this spot. So
We'd love to have Appleton as a sponsor, however.
Sure, hey, that sounds like an excellent idea. But yeah, so we're drinking a little bit of coquito, warming ourselves up from the inside.
Yes, not from the outside because it's like 78 degrees outside right now.
It's probably more like 84 in sunny South Florida. But yeah, so we're here. So if you hear us drinking and clinking ice, that's probably why.
This is Joelle's special mixture, by the way, which to fully understand what that means for those who have not had the pleasure of meeting Joelle, it means that when she decided she was going to make her own recipe for coquito, she didn't just put together the ingredients that she had read go in this drink. She bought multiple different versions of the ingredients and different brands and made test batches that we would then consume and go, well, that's good, but there's a little too much grittiness in the coconut. We don't need so much. It needs to be strained, or we need something that's not quite so, has not as much pulpiness to it, or I think we need a little more of this or that. And so she tested this out, and of course we were grateful for the opportunity to help with that testing, and she arrived at this recipe that has been called perfection by many.
I guess he gives me way too much credit. I just dabbled. Until I thought I got it right.
Well, most people say you got it pretty damn right.
All right. So another thing that I think got pretty damn right was A Chorus Line, the movie.
Oh, yes. That's what we will be talking about today is A Chorus Line, the movie that I had not seen.
Correct. And I had seen a gazillion times.
Yes. More than a gazillion, I would say.
I don't think we need to emphasize the word gazillion. But yeah, so I've seen it a billion times. It was one of my faves growing up. My mom introduced me to it, and I love it. I think that it's great.
They've come here by the hundreds with a dream, but only 8 can make it come true. It's the chance of a lifetime.
And 5, 6, 7, 8.
It's the line between nowhere
You're all terrific. I wish I could hire you all, but I can't.
and the stars. A Chorus Line.
But of course, I wasn't deeply rooted in the 70s Broadway cast version. So
yeah, there's a lot of contention around this film.
Oh, there's a ton of contention. But I think really what it all boils down to is what did you see first and fall in love with? And I think that for, pubescent me, I think that I totally love Chorus Line, the movie. And actually, when I saw a touring version of the play, which really wasn't so hot, but when I saw the touring version, I didn't love it as much. So I was like, what happened to, these other numbers that are in the movie, but not in the Broadway,
Surprise.
Broadway production. Right. Like surprise. And I'm sure the folks who love the Broadway production feel the same way about things that weren't exactly the same in the movie. A lot of weren't exactly the same in the movie. So,
and some of that is going to come down to the fundamental differences between theater and film. And some of it comes down to creative decisions of what parts to emphasize and what parts to de-emphasize, what to remove, what to add. And so we're going to talk about all of that. But would you love to give us the synopsis?
Sure. It's a dancer's career short. Will this be their final hope or the start of something grand?
Ooh, Nice.
17 words.
That actually,
Eat that.
I think, is actually that actually
Eat that.
I think is better than what they had in one of the ads, which was the line between nowhere and the stars, which sounds something like between the moon and New York City from Arthur, but
I know it's crazy, dun, dun, but it's true.
yes, this
Dun,
episode
dun,
of our
dun,
podcast will
dun,
probably be
dun.
highly musical,
We
as
get off between the moon and... Sorry, wrong film.
As,
Coquito is doing its job.
chorus line does bring out the singer in Joe, especially with a few of the numbers.
God, I hope I get it. I
Yes.
hope I get it.
We also warmed up for this by
How many
listening
people
to
does he need? How many boys? How many girls? How many people does he?
exactly.
It's amazing.
Yes.
So is this Coquito. I'm such a lightweight.
So, where would you like to begin in this discussion?
So I guess you haven't seen it. So what did you think when you were watching this movie, I guess? Which is also musical, which is also like the bane of your existence.
Well,
For anybody who doesn't know, Parry is because if you've been listening to this podcast, you know he's traumatized by musicals in general because of growing up and watching bad productions of Oklahoma a gazillion times.
well, I was going to say that you would think that this film would be my worst nightmare come true, because not only is it a musical, but it is a musical about musicals.
Yes.
And that combination of things you'd think would really get under my skin. And also being as I don't really like, for example, Hollywood movies about Hollywood, unless they're really, really well done, they tend to drive me crazy. But this one, for all the reasons that it could have made me nuts, did not. And it was shocking even to me, given...
Oh my gosh, his meds are working.
Very well today. And the coquito, the two mixed.
There we go.
But as you've said, if you haven't been listening, those who haven't heard before, my mother took me to a lot of musicals as a child, and the only albums we had in our home, if you heard the glug glug there, that was a little coquito going down. But I could hear it. But we only had the album. Let's see, what did we have? We had Camelot.
Music Man.
Right here in River City.
Oklahoma.
And South Pacific.
I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair.
And 1 8-track of John Philip Sousa's greatest hits. Were the only things that were in our record cabinet, and I had a copy of Mary Poppins that I listened to incessantly.
Chim chimney, chim chimney, chim chim chiroo.
So it wasn't all musicals I had an issue with. I love Mary Poppins to this day.
I know you do.
Even if we haven't seen the sequel, we'll have to see. But
that's because you're obsessed with
Manuel Miranda.
Yes, you are.
Very
You're
much
so
so.
obsessed.
But who wouldn't be? Who shouldn't be? He's extraordinary. But those musical albums we heard a lot, but we also went to a lot, and we saw just about everything that was out. But of course, Oklahoma was the one that did me in.
And you're doing fine, Oklahoma, Oklahoma, okay.
I swore off musicals for decades, until recently when we saw I was convinced by you and Becky and Kelly to go and see Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, which is an amazing show if you've never seen it. And then we saw Wicked, and then Hamilton, and Hello, Dolly, which is more old school style, but I could appreciate because it was Bette Midler and David Hyde Pierce, and how could you not? But I really was hesitant going into this. I really thought it was going to drive me up a wall.
God, I hope I get it. I hope I get it.
And I think that's what I liked best about it, was the fact that I could relate, not because I ever tried to be a Broadway singer or dancer or musical theater. I did a little bit of theater, never musical, of course. But
why? Because you have no rhythm?
None whatsoever. I can't sing on key. I have no rhythm. I have no musical ability. But having been, a tempted filmmaker and and still videographer and editor and all those things. I could relate to that, the agony of the artist, in that you only have a very short window sometimes to prove to someone how good you are at something. And sometimes you don't feel like you got a fair shot at that. And also trying to survive.
Is that why you have your own podcast now?
Indeed it is. Talking about movies so I can tear down those who rejected so that I can work my way back into and ingratiate myself to. No. But, it's that all the things you have to do and to sacrifice trying to be an artist, there are a lot of things involved with that, and there's a lot of pain. And so I think that that's what I really enjoyed in this, was the fact that we got to see behind the curtain, quite literally, as to what was going on in all their personal lives. Because, of course, this play is based on actual recordings done with dancers, or the gypsies, as they were often called, the people who were often auditioning to be a part of the chorus line or the background singers and dancers. And they recorded a number of them over a period of weeks and built this play out, the original play, out of those interviews. And so I think the fact that it connects to the real lives of these artists is what makes it so powerful and impactful.
That was just one question, folks.
And there's more to that. I backed off because you started sitting way back in your chair. So.
I did. You've been rambling for like 5 minutes. I'm going to say probably the same thing, but a little bit shorter. So I just really sum it all up with, aren't we all still trying to stay relevant in our jobs and life? And, don't we all want to make that mark, that impact, that piece, right, that we've left the world, as well as the overarching themes of, growing up and trying to fit in. It's, as we hear through the stories, and if you've never seen A Chorus Line or you don't know anything about it, I definitely recommend, you're not going to be able to see a play version of this anytime soon. So
there may be a revival in 2025 from what I've heard.
Okay, so. Well.
That's a few years away, though.
Yeah. Until then, go ahead and watch the movie. I don't think you're going to be so disappointed if you've never seen or heard anything about A Chorus Line at all. It has Michael Douglas, a very young 80s Michael Douglas. And
much to some chagrin, he's gotten a lot of flack for his performance in it.
Either way, it's each dancer's story of how they're trying to fit in and what got them to that stage at that point. So that's really a lot of it. It's this whole interview process of trying to get a job. And what the choreographer wants to know, aka Michael Douglas, wants to know is, well, what brought you to the stage? Well, why dancing? And so you really hear tale after tale of how they grew up and just trying to fit in, and the struggles that they had when they were kids and growing up, whether it was growing up in a tumultuous household or growing up homosexual, or finding out they're homosexual, or just the struggles of youth in general, or the struggles of those trying to still make it in their careers. You have some starters and some midway folks, and then some people at sort of the end of their career trying to make it back, or those who have fallen from grace sort of and trying to make it back as well. So that's really what the big overarching themes are.
Well, and that, I thought, and I think it's probably a good time to talk about some of the
quote.
Well, yes, the quote before we get to the next
quote.
part. Yes. What have you chosen as your possible quote for the title?
It's from a song, of course. So I dug right down to the bottom of my soul, and I tried and tried. Nothing. I'm feeling nothing except the feeling like this bullshit is absurd. Just how I feel a lot of the time.
About a lot of things.
So yeah, that's my quote from Diana Morales.
Wow, I liked Always Wong, Never White.
Really?
No, I thought that
you picked Connie Wong.
No, I thought that was a great line, but
jerk.
I think give a man some room.
Oh yes. All thanks to assist. Dun, dun, dun. See, you do that to gaslight me. I can do this.
Hell, I can do that. That I can do. Give a man some room.
I didn't, but I do.
I can do that.
I do hear that song a lot, especially when you ask me to do something. I go, "Oh yeah, I can do that." And you go, "I can."
Sorry.
Yep.
I drank my coquito a little too fast.
Yeah, I do see an empty glass sitting over there.
Sucker.
So, well, I do think it is a good time to talk a little bit about just a quick, some quick details on the history of the play.
Oh, wow, you're really jumping the shark into production.
No, just talking about the play itself so that people will understand the discussion about the movie versus the musical play, that why there's such a frustration among some of the fans to the way it was translated to the film.
Okay, go ahead.
So, I think the biggest problem people have is that the original play, which was choreographed by Michael Bennett and written by, hold on, I have it here. Oh, shoot.
And then he didn't.
Surprise!
And it had a book by James Kirkwood Jr. and Nicholas Dante, and the music was by Marvin Hamlish with lyrics by Edward Claiborne. And it really was the play that helped to bring Broadway back to life. Broadway was really floundering at the time, and when it came out, it really shifted the paradigm and started bringing audiences back to Broadway, back to the Times Square area. It really helped in that beginning of that revitalization, that people were coming to see theater. Apparently, its whole run sold out very quickly or its initial run sold out very quickly because the good word on the street. And it ended up running. It was at one point the longest running play in history, before it was beat out by Cats in 97 and Les Mis and Phantom in 02. Now, according to some, they were near giving away tickets to Cats at the end just to beat the record and get it over the top. But
And then Chicago.
right,
After that.
and Chicago after that. So, but it had a total, in its initial run, it's had one revival since then, but its initial run was 6,137 performances, which is extraordinary. And like I said earlier, it was based on recordings from real dancers who had auditioned many times and had stories to tell about how they were surviving and what went on at these auditions. And Bennett had called Hamlish, who was an Oscar award-winning composer, had written the score for The Sting, so the famous Entertainer track for that, and told him about it. And they worked on it together, got this amazing lyricist, Claiborne, to work. And so they really put together this masterpiece. And it is focused on the dancers. The whole play is about the dancers. And there is this minor plot in there about a returning dancer, Cassie, who used to have a relationship with Zach, who is the choreographer who we never see in the stage version. He's supposed to be sitting in the seats out there with us, auditioning these dancers who are going to be in his play. And so that was part of the story, but not the main focus. And the film when they adapted it, they decided they were going to focus on that love story between Cassie and Zach.
Right, because they needed conflict.
Right.
You needed to have an interplay. It wouldn't have translated the same, I think, had you just focused on the dancers. There wasn't any conflict with the dancers. It would have fell flat on screen.
And musicals are not...
Which was an issue trying to get directors in the first place for it. Bennett really didn't want to touch it, and then they didn't treat him so nice, and then he really didn't want to touch it.
Right, he jumped off the project pretty quickly once it was underway, but before that they had offered it to a number of people like Adrian Lyne, and none of them wanted to do it. So once it got going with Richard Attenborough, Bennett was not given quite the control he wanted, and so he jumped off the project. Apparently that was pretty common. He wanted to have a lot of control over everything, which shows in the production.
He really wanted it to be very close to the Broadway play.
Yeah.
And I think that when they started to deviate, he was like, no.
Yeah, and so he jumped off early, and so it's definitely a different. And he didn't want them to focus on that. That was one specific thing he did not want, was them to focus on the love story, and they did. And many people have said to them that takes you away from the dancers and their stories, and in fact, it cuts away in the middle of some of their stories to focus on what Michael Douglas is saying, or what they're saying off the stage, and you don't get to hear everything that they're saying. And so people have been frustrated that you miss out on some of the dancers' stories. Also, something people were frustrated by was that all of Bennett's choreography was not in the film. A lot of it was removed and redone by the guy who did Flashdance, which is Hornaday. And so he redid the choreography for it to kind of update it, make it a little more 80s, and they did that with the music and the costuming.
Yeah, because the play initiated in the mid-70s, so
Right.
It had a very 70s vibe to it. So there's no way you could release something in the 80s with that same vibe. It's too close.
So
You had to update it.
So yeah, those are some of the issues that people have had with the translation to film, is that it just focused on the wrong areas. But again, I
think it's too beloved. I honestly, I think it's too beloved, and it was too close without being close enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people really just took that and they ran with that, and they were pissed off. But if you look at it now, and if you look at it as a standalone, or even if you looked at it back then as a standalone, I didn't know any better, And even as an adult, even though I've seen, an okay version of the play,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like it as much.
Mm-hmm.
And that might also be because what they're talking about sometimes is not as relevant as it was then to now. Like the behind the scenes, take a look behind the curtain. Well, we've had reality TV for that.
Right.
So having that other piece of the love story actually helped progress it in the film now.
It is true that in its day, it was pretty groundbreaking in terms of the things that they were discussing and the things and
Right.
the diversity of the cast.
Right.
And so it has been called the Hamilton of its day, in that it was exploring areas in a way that was unique and different, and that they were talking about things that in the mid-70s were somewhat taboo still to discuss.
Yeah. Like homosexuality.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even the 80s, early 80s, it was still a little taboo, but having that piece in there too. But the criticism that it got, just the beating that it got, was just incredible. And I think maybe we're heading too much into production notes. So
Maybe, but I will say that some of the things, it wasn't even just sexual orientation, but it was talking about sex in general, and abuse and molestation and alcoholism, body image issues, all kinds of, sexuality, just so many different subjects that, we kind of take for granted those conversations at this point. But in the mid-70s, a lot of that was new discussion in public.
it was. And I think this is a good segue into the good, the bad, and the ugly. Hey, maybe coquito really loosens the lips a little bit. Just saying.
Well, that can't be all bad.
Can't be all bad. All right, so what's your good?
My good in this, I really liked. I think the fact that the whole film isn't just about success. So many films about a creative process and artistry are about someone's success and how they overcame adversity and won. And I think sometimes you have to see where people lose and lose everything, if not necessarily through any fault of their own. And I think that Paul, what happens to Paul, and the fact that, he's already had knee surgery and he has that fall and hurts his knee, and
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
yeah, sorry everyone, spoiler. The fact that he and some of the others may never get what they so deeply desire, I think is is the hard truth and reality of being an artist. And I think that, sad as it is, it's good to see those things portrayed as well. And so I liked that was in there quite a bit.
Okay. I'm going to say the songs and the ensemble. I still really loved it in general. I know that it's not 110% to the original, but I actually like the faster versions of it. I think it works well for movies. I like the faster versions of it, period.
Because the original Broadway recording, there are slower versions of a lot of the songs out there.
Exactly. So I actually like the songs on the soundtrack, the movie soundtrack, better. That's me.
And I would agree that I like the faster sound. Now, what's interesting is that a lot of the original songs have a bit of a 70s funk sound to them that was taken out for the movie, and some more 80s synth was put in there to update it for the 1985
but the horns
release.
Still all stayed.
Yes.
So I feel like if you hear it, it's just a convergence of the two decades. I don't really feel like it's gone 110% 80s. There's still that horn section.
Right, the classic Broadway sounds are still in there.
It's still there.
I actually thought they were a little cleaner in the recordings that I heard.
I agree. See, I think that's the issue, is that we've seen the movie first.
Yeah.
And then once you see the movie, you're loyal to whatever you see first. It's sort of like hearing Wicked in London and then hearing Wicked Broadway English version, US stateside version. I can't listen to it. I can't listen to that soundtrack at all. I'm so stuck on the English cast recording, or not official recording, but hearing London's cast in my head versus now the stateside one just sounds so harsh and awful.
Right.
It's just whatever you hear first and love first.
Well, and I would agree. I would say that, and this goes in with my
bad,
but it's interesting. This walks the line between bad and good. Is that this is an 80s movie.
You're such a waffler.
And I'm trying to be balanced. This is an 80s movie, and
never in your life.
And it is very obviously set in the 80s for this film. But in a way it's trapped there too, because of the hairstyles and the French cut leotards.
It's all coming back, baby.
I don't know if those pants that I Can Do That guy was wearing.
Oh, like the Zubaz pants?
I don't know what those were with the weird cut around the side.
Or Z Cavaricci? Were they Z Cavaricci?
I don't think so.
Zubaz, like MC Hammer type pants? They came back a little bit, sort of.
Parachute even. They had this flap that folded around.
It's Zubaz.
Zubaz.
Z-U, I don't know. All the NFL players used to wear it. Like if you had really big thighs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had like Velcro at the top. Yeah, a ton of NFL players used to wear it. Zubaz, Z-U. I'm going to look it up.
I've never heard of such a thing, but
it exists. Don't disregard me.
Who was it? Mike in the film was wearing those. So when he does his I Can Do That number, they're just
that
the most bizarre pants. But I kind of want a pair of them, strangely.
Not strangely with your feathered 80s hair right now.
Yes, not,
all things
Joe.
But I can do this. So stuck.
But I think that's the thing, is that it does date it to keep it in the 80s, because the stories they're telling are universal about being ignored as children.
Think it looks that dated. I actually think, in comparison to like a lot of John Hughes movies, it holds up really well.
Mm.
There's never crazy racial slurs or anything weird in there.
True, we never
get
a gong.
There's no gong
every
for dong.
For Connie Wong, there's no gong every
yes,
time
always
she appears.
Wong, never right. That's the only thing.
Yeah. But she's making a joke of that.
She is making a joke of that.
Yeah.
So anyway, my only bad is that I don't know, Allison Reed. I don't know if you were the best opposite Michael Douglas. And I think it's maybe because I've seen him across from so many amazing leading ladies that I don't know if I quite get your lovelorn desperation. it is desperate the way that she portrays Cass, and it's sort of Cass is in a desperate place. She's a dancer. She hasn't been working in a year. She's going back to like the love of her life and basically begging him for a job after she left him pretty high and dry, it sounds like, and without real notice, sort of. That sort of is what it sounds like. But
and having to kind of come back with her tail between her legs because she went to go make it in Hollywood and didn't make it.
But I don't really get the tail between the legs type feeling from her. And maybe it's just like a step too desperate, which is so sad because I think maybe some of the criticism for Michael Douglas is their interplay. But I actually think as a leading man, he does a very good job in terms of portraying the wistfulness and the anxiety and the agitation of her showing up and bombarding into his, auditions.
I think that this is where the difference between film and theater really comes in, is that in theater, you have to be so big about things, even when you're trying to be subtle. You have to be very big. And in the scenes together, or in the scenes where they're interacting, because they're rarely even close to each other. She's on the stage and he's in the seats. And when they cut to the close-ups, his facial expressions, just the small twitch of his eyes, or
He's so good at that.
The curl of his lip, and the agitation mixed with sadness and frustration, and all of these things mixing together at once. I think that's something it's much harder to do in theater that way, because you can't see someone's subtle face expressions unless you're down in the front few rows. But you have to be able to reach all the way to the people at the back of the balcony and, in the mezzanine and all the way back there. And that's one of the things that I have always appreciated in the difference, and why I've typically been more of a film person, because I love those subtleties. Not that I don't love the theater for many of its own reasons, because if you go that big on film, you look ridiculous, and we've seen that happen too. But I thought that some of his subtle motions, and the way that after she reappears, he even seems to be sort of questioning himself a little bit, like he was the big badass, and then he seems
a great job.
Little crumbling.
Yeah,
after that.
my bad part is that I don't think she was a good fit for him opposite that. She just, it almost was too desperate. And I don't know if that's a directing choice or if it was her choice, but that's my only thing about that.
Maybe he just likes him much younger, like Catherine Zeta-Jones.
I mean, maybe. But Kathleen Turner wasn't younger, and like their interplay and dynamic is so amazing.
Yeah.
I think that's what, maybe also seeing it at a different time and knowing what he can do across from somebody. He does do love very well. So for me, it's almost sad that I don't see him able to do it at the same level or have it reciprocated back the same level. So maybe that's why that's my bad.
Well, and a lot of people felt very much the same way that you did about it, and they also really disliked how they reworked her character a little bit and how they gave her a song that replaced one of their favorites, which was The Music in the Mirror, which was not sung by her in the original play. And they gave her What I Did for Love, which even the composer and the lyricist thought was a little too general, and they were right. They were proven right when in the film version, when they, like I said, they reworked this song for the film, and they gave it to Cassie, and they have her singing it more about What I Did for Love for Zach, Michael Douglas's character, than for What I Did for the Love of Dance. And so a lot of people were very frustrated by what they thought was the misuse of that song, or the song that was reworked for the film, because of course there are several songs in the film that were not in the play, and several songs were removed. But I know one of your favorites, Surprise, was written specifically for the film.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Exactly.
Surprise.
And unfortunately, that was actually, even though it has some weird lyrics about sex in a graveyard and icicle hot and things like that,
I know. How is an icicle hot? I mean, I thought at some point he was talking about icy hot. Does that count?
He's not Shaq.
What do you mean Shaq?
'Cause
Oh,
Shaq-
because Shaq talks about Icy Hot. I got it. That took me a second. Oh, wow. That was pretty quick of you.
Yes, thank you.
Good job. Good job. It's because you haven't been drinking the coquito.
But unfortunately, that character of Richie, played by Greg Berg, he's the only one who really gets to show off his solo dance skills, because he gets that big scene where he gets to dance around singing Surprise. And a lot of like I said, not only did they take out a lot of the original choreography, but they shot a lot of the scenes waist up and didn't even really showcase the true skill of these dancers. And so that's where a lot of people who were really about the dance aspects of the film were really disappointed that those items were missing or truncated. A lot of the musical numbers are only done in partial versions as opposed to full, which would have extended the film by another hour if they'd done complete versions.
Yeah.
And this was not a musical in the sense of something like Fiddler on the Roof or Oklahoma or Seven Brides for Seven Brothers or any of those other Music Man, where they pretty much are just doing a in the studio stage version, which looks very stagey in a lot of those. But this one, they were trying to go for a little bit more of not a documentary, although it is more of that style.
So what's your ugly? Because,
Well, I think my ugly was something we've already discussed, which was that they took out Burnett's original choreography, and that they focused too much on the love story at the cost of some of the dancers' stories. I think they could have extended the movie maybe by another 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes, and gotten a few more of the actors' stories in. I think it's brilliant how they do work the ones in there, but I feel like they were missing some of that, and that might have satisfied the lovers of the musical somewhat if they had filled that out a little bit more. But I felt like we didn't really get to know those characters as well, and I would have liked to have seen some of them fleshed out a little bit more, because I did find them interesting. I just wanted to know more about them, and I think they got shortchanged a little bit.
That's fair. I think my ugly just might be, it's more of a general ugly in life. We're just always still focused on the perfectness of everything, whether it's ageism, whether it's race or sexism, whether it's, your appearance. We as a society have just never truly strayed away from that. And I think the more social media oriented we become, and more, I don't know, I think that's my overarching just thematic ugly, is that the film, because it is a part of their everyday life, definitely focused on the ageism and appearance and how you look and your lifespan and how short of a window you have. So there isn't this, I can do that all the time. It's, I can do that for a very short window of time, which is realistic in terms of Broadway and dance, obviously, for a multitude of reasons. I just think that there was never a counterbalance to that story, which, I don't know, makes it depressing when you think about it. So that's my only thing. It's more of a commentary in general about how we always feel like there are time limits for things, I think, in our lives. And obviously biologically there are definitely some time limits on what your body can or can't do, or optimal times for your body or can't do. I think I just still live in a world where if I decide that I want to do something, I can go ahead and do it no matter what age I am.
We do tend to shed a lot of praise on people who do certain things young and, accomplish certain things by a certain point. What we don't like to point out is that sometimes if you reach your peak at 20, that it's a hard time finding that next great thing afterwards, and sometimes that's just as difficult. I think the film also kind of peels back, as you were saying about social media, we can present this image that everything in our life is perfect via social media, the Facebook effect, or, Instagram, where every meal we have is perfect and every morning we wake up looking perfect and every vacation is perfect and our relationship is perfect. And in the film, we like to think that way about actors in particular. Oh, you're on Broadway, your life must be perfect. And to be able to see behind that, hey, this guy is a waiter trying to make it, and she has this issue, or was alcoholism in this family, and all these things, that they have the same issues that everyone does, and they're dealing with the same residual effects of their childhood, or just trying to deal with being a parent, or trying to be a working actor, and all of those things, that they have the same problems and issues as most people do, that their life isn't necessarily perfect because they happen to perform on Broadway. So I did appreciate that aspect, because we're in that era even more so now of everything in my life is great because I took a great picture of me with a little heart around the sunset with my boyfriend or something. Yes, Walter. It's dumb.
Walter agrees, I guess. Love cats. So yeah, I think we're done with that segment. And now we have production notes with Parry. Hey.
Well.
Oh, wait. Let me do the rundown. Wait,
oh,
before
yes.
I get so excited.
Do the rundown. I was so excited for my first piece of trivial knowledge.
Oh, gosh. I'm scared now. Chorus Line, the movie, was directed by Richard Attenborough, produced by Cy Feuer. Is that right? Screenplay by Arnold Schumann, and it's based on the Chorus Line play by Kirkwood Jr. and Dante. Music by Hamlish and Klebon. Cinematography by Ronnie Taylor, edited by John Bloom. And the production companies were Embassy Film Associates and Polygram, and distributed by Columbia Pictures. The release date was December 13th, 1985. So wait a minute. That makes this that makes us old just like me. Oh boy. 38 years ago. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
No, it can't be 38 years ago. Wow. 33 years ago. Okay. Can't do math after coquito. A running time of 118 minutes. The budget was $25 million. Box office only $14 million. Wah, wah, wah.
And it was something like $10 million already before they even started production.
Yeah, because they had to get the rights and all that craziness. So it was pretty nuts. IMDb 6.1 out of 10. Critics give it a 40% on Rotten Tomatoes, but 62% of the audience liked it. So every 6 and 10, every 3 and 5 people like it. That's not so bad. I actually think it'll probably keep going up as time goes on.
So you can do coquito math.
Oh, fractions. I can always do fractions. Thanks. Maybe just not simple subtraction, obviously. But what's sad is that it was such a flop. And I think it was because it was released 10 years after the Broadway play. And those who saw it, especially the critics, because, they're based out of New York. So it's not fair. They've obviously seen the play before. So I think a lot of their critique was it's just not the play. Well, no, duh. It's not supposed to be the play. It's a movie. And no one could really differentiate between the two. And I think that's the saddest of all. I don't ever think it got a fair shot. Because some of the actors who were actually in the Broadway revival actually played their roles in the movie, or were in Broadway, or were in touring productions. There are 5 of the characters. So the one that plays Bobby, Greg, Maggie, and Sheila, and actually Cassie, all played some version of themselves or were in the play, I think, except for Sheila. Sheila was different characters within, but they were all a part of the original Broadway play in general. So I think I just don't think it ever got a fair shot.
I would agree. There were a lot of things that did not bode well for it, and I think, like I said, being released so much later, and some of the shifts and changes, and there were just a lot of things that were working against it. So, well, do you think it would have done any better had they cast couple of their original choices?
No Madonna. No Madonna.
You don't think Madonna would have improved it?
What role would she have done?
I don't know. She auditioned but was not selected. So I don't know if Madonna might have helped
And
it.
then Madonna's whole thing, if she'd been selected, then she might have done something entirely different. Like, who could she have been?
Now, what about the original selection for Christine DeLuca, which was Leah Thompson? She decided to go do Back to the Future instead.
Yeah, I think that was a much better choice.
But although the one who did end up playing Christine DeLuca was,
Nicole Fosse.
yes, daughter of...
Bob Fosse.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So it was kind of appropriate that she would be in something like this about Broadway and about dancers. So that seems right. So one of my favorite stories from all of the special features and documentaries we watched came from Hamlish, the composer, who was talking about how they weren't getting the laughs they wanted from one of the funniest songs in the whole thing, which neither of us chose as our favorite, but it was Tits and Ass, which is a great song. And I think...
Wait, how do you know we haven't chosen that our favorite? We haven't said our favorites yet.
Oh, sorry.
Just saying.
Well, we hadn't even discussed it yet, so I thought maybe it hadn't made it to favorite. But I think it's a great, funny song. I also think it talks about the realities as well of working in a visual medium like theater, that people are judging you based on your appearance. And one of the lyrics in the song is Dance 10 Looks 3.
Dance 10 looks 3. It's like to die. Yep.
And what Hamlish realized, because they were going to cut the
Sorry,
song...
I apologize for all of my bad singing today. I'm going to say that it's the coquito.
Coquito crackiness?
But that's lies. I probably sing this way more often than I would care to admit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you do. But, so Hamlish decided he was going to actually see the play as an audience member. And so he waited in line, bought a ticket, picked up a program, sat down, and was going to watch the show. And he's flipping through the playbill, and he realizes the name of the song gives it away. That the original name was I think TNA or Tits and Ass, and it gives away the joke. And so they changed the title to Dance 10 Looks 3.
Dance 10 Looks 3.
So that people would not be expecting what was coming from that. And so, but like I said, I think the song it's funny, but it really does talk about some of the price of success. So makes me think of the George Michael song in Freedom, which is a brand new face for the boys on MTV. So,
yes.
Because he had kind of changed his look from the Wham days when he became a solo artist. And you get the idea that they gave him a lot of notes on how they would like him to look in terms of when he was doing videos for MTV.
Well, yes, sort of. There's a whole backstory behind that.
Ooh, and I don't know the whole backstory.
Oh, you didn't watch the biography?
No, I didn't.
This is us going off on a tangent.
Yes, but a George Michael tangent, so...
Yeah, so George Michael, when he put out Freedom, the issue was that he was having creative differences with the record company, and the deal is that he didn't want to do all those pressers anymore. He was over it. So everyone was like, what do you mean you don't want to go out and promote your album? And so that's where that actually, I think it's the first or second album after Faith, the second album, and he didn't want to do a lot of it. And that's where all of that comes from.
I do remember on Saturday Night Live, they had the Phil Hartman playing Frank Sinatra, saying that's part of fame is you go out and tour, because apparently Frank Sinatra really wrote him a letter saying part of the cost of fame is that you have to...
He did, but he said, okay, that's great, but I choose not to. And British media, of course, is very different, and they actually understood that he just wanted a break and he wanted to have some privacy but still put out music. And no one would sort of let him.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, he got a lot of flack for that. I do remember that.
He did.
What, about 1989, 1990?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And then he sued the record company, and it just all went crazy until another record company bought out his contract because they said, hey, this guy's never going to produce anything for you anymore.
Yeah. So the price of fame.
The price of fame. Cut. Can I blow my nose, please?
Sure.
Thanks.
Tits and ass, had the bingo bongos done. Suddenly I'm getting national too.
So what else? What else have you got? Production notes from Parry?
Well, I liked that Terrence Mann, who he was one of my favorite things in the film. I thought
Larry, a.k.a. Tim Curry.
he was kind of an ersatz Tim Curry. No, you know what? That's a bad word because ersatz is like a lesser imitation.
No, I really thought it was Tim Curry initially.
He looked a lot like Tim Curry.
They look like brothers.
Now,
are you guys really related?
Because they have that same Cheshire
They're both
Cat
alive.
smile.
Can somebody figure that out for me, please? I wouldn't be mad if they did read another version of Clue and they had Larry Mann playing Tim Curry since Tim Curry had the stroke. So I wouldn't be actually upset because I would buy it.
Well, that's why I was saying ersatz was bad, because I feel like he never has tried to play a Tim Curry character, and that might not be...
But he's been in Rocky Horror Picture Show.
He's been in the play?
Yes.
Okay, because I was going to say he was definitely not in the sequel to Rocky Horror, Shock Treatment, which is...
Oh, God, no.
a pseudo-sequel, which is terrible.
Terrible.
But yeah, I thought that it's... Terrence Mann as Larry was great, but I also thought it was really interesting that he later married... actress-dancer Charlotte D'Amboise, and she played the Cassie role in the revival of Chorus Line.
Yes.
So I thought that was really interesting.
Well, there was a lot of love connections.
Yeah, Pam Klinger and Charles McGowan, Mike and Maggie, they met during the production and eventually married, and sadly, Charles is no longer with us.
Yep, stayed married till Charles died.
Yeah.
5 years ago. Just even on the cast itself, there are just so many talented cast members. And I know we only mentioned, Michael Douglas and Terrence Mann, Alice Reed, Sharon Brown, Kim, the assistant, right? She was in a couple of other 80s movies as well. You had Audrey Landers playing Val, who is infamous from Dallas. Yamil Borges, who Diana Morales, I think, is probably my favorite character. She just tells it like it is. And it just is like, this is just how I felt. And she's nothing.
Nothing. I'm feeling nothing.
She's a successful jazz singer in Germany now. She lives in Berlin.
I'm feeling nothing. Nothing can get a girl transferred.
Obviously, she felt something for jazz.
Obviously, she did. But she did not feel like being the snow. And then Greg Burge was also in The Wiz. And choreographed Bad, Michael Jackson's Bad video.
Yeah, a lot of these folks went on to do some choreography.
Cameron English was in Captain EO.
Yes. And a couple of them were, yeah.
Yeah, Michelle Johnson worked also on Captain EO and helped out the choreography for this as well. And Dick Tracy and Madonna's Who's That Girl tour. Yeah.
Now, Audrey Landers, you mentioned she's the TNA. She left Dallas, the show, to do this movie, and she wasn't much of a dancer, so you notice that they don't really show her in a lot of the shots or show her full body in a lot of the dancing scenes.
Right. But she's in a lot of them. She just still does a couple of things.
She just wasn't
totally
as skilled.
Yep. And now, of course, Judy Monroe, a.k.a. Janet Jones, a.k.a. Janet Gretzky now.
Yes.
Married
that's right.
Wayne Gretzky a couple of years after.
And apparently was knocked unconscious during a Red Wings game because a piece of plexiglass popped out and whacked her in the face when a couple of the players ran into it.
Crazy.
And Gretzky kept playing. But he claims that it's because the paramedics said there's nothing you can do right now, just let us do our work. But so he kept playing the game.
So if I got knocked unconscious, would you keep playing?
I would not continue recording a podcast if you were knocked unconscious.
Exactly,
because,
good.
I'd just be talking to myself. And you're the most... Ow! And you're the most interesting thing about the show. So, it would just be the lesser without you.
Nice recovery. So what else you got?
I think, there's always little good tidbits here and there, but I think the only other thing is that a couple of the cast members, like Sharon Brown, were born on her birthday. Happy birthday, Sharon.
Happy birthday, Sharon, in 11 days.
And a couple of the others, but I don't remember. There was one other. I don't remember which one.
Okay. But yeah, so the ensemble was pretty great. Soundtrack smashes. Hey.
Oh, yeah.
So what's your favorite song?
I
Oh, wait, I should preface this. So there are no real notes about how the soundtrack did, but if it's anything like box office, I would say not well. Sadly, which I think, because I actually like the soundtrack over the Broadway cast recording. I'm going to get murdered for this. I'm aware already of all the wonderful people who are like, what do you mean? It's just what I grew up with. And I think that's a lot of it, is that whatever you grow up with or whatever you're familiar with or whatever you've been exposed to first might just win out in your heart sometimes. I mean, I remember watching this movie and watching like Staying Alive and Two of a Kind and Center Stage and every single dance show you could ever possibly imagine. I just loved. And this was no exception. I just loved it. And I think this probably started me on the crazy journey, as a matter of fact.
Well, Travolta was supposedly considered as for Zach at one point, and maybe even for directing as well.
Yep. So what's your favorite? Oh, so no real info on that. If you want to get the vinyl, you totally can. The CD is like $10. Vinyl will run you about the same with shipping. It's very easy to come by. Maybe not to get like the 2-part one, but the vinyl is pretty easy to come by. So it should be anywhere from $10 to $20 with shipping.
And it was Allison Reed, Cassie, who was also our same birthday. So yay, Cappies. So my soundtrack choice has to be...
I can do that. Da, da, da. That I can do.
Yes. I love the lyrics. I love the energy of it.
That's a very positive song for you.
I know, right?
I feel like we had role reversal.
I think it's because... I don't know.
Thanks to sis.
Hamlish described it as there are... And I always, in musicals, like the story songs better than the songs.
Right. But there are a lot of story songs in this.
Yes, there are. And I don't know. That one, I like the story that he was going to dance class with his sister. She doesn't want to go anymore, but he always enjoyed it so much that now he wants to go. And I don't know. Also he's one of the first ones to really want to tell his story. When Zach is asking them to tell the truth, everyone seems to be making up bullshit and trying to be funny and entertaining. But he's telling, even though his is still funny, he's still telling you truth, and it kind of helps, in some of the others telling some more truth. So I don't know.
Wow, it's very positive of you.
I know, it's so outside my realm.
Unlike you, I have chosen nothing that Diana Morales sings because I feel like, well, she's talking about her acting school and having this teacher, and the teacher is telling her, well, yeah, you've got to go ahead and feel the snow and feel the breeze and feel the wind and act it out, this acting coach, Mr. Carpenter. And basically she's like, I don't feel any of this shit that he's asking me to do, and I'm trying to go through these motions, but really deep down inside, I don't feel anything. And I don't really understand what you're trying to get at. And I think sometimes we're forced to feel or do or say, or in situations where we feel like we're forced to do or say something that somebody is asking of us. And the reality is that A, we don't want to, or B, we're not feeling it. And I can relate to that a lot. So yeah, I feel nothing. I'm feeling nothing. That also might make me a psychopath.
Well, I also
sociopath, really.
She actually said a lot about actors with that section where she says,
I feel the cold. I feel it.
Where people, I think sometimes they fake it. Oh, yes, I feel that. I certainly do. And not all actors, but a lot of the actors that I met in LA, they were really good at sort of imitating human emotion in anything you needed them to do. But when it came to expressing their own emotions, they were not always so great at that.
Yep. And I just think that she sort of says, I was trying so hard to feel something. And she says, I dug right down to the bottom of my soul, right, to see what I had inside. And I dug right down to the bottom of my soul. And I tried. Because you don't necessarily want to fail, but you're just not necessarily capable of feeling what somebody else wants you to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And she just sort of has this, and I felt nothing. She's telling this whole room, like, hey, I don't know. I just didn't dig it. And it wasn't okay at the time, and I got shunned at it for the time, but now it's fine because that's just not who I was, or that's not how I was built.
Yes.
Yeah. So
were there
that's very dark for me, because normally you would think that I would have chosen I Can Do That, because
Right.
that I could do.
Well, I think it might be because when you get
all things desist.
when you get to a certain level with things and you have achieved high level with your grad school and PhD, that people start to ask you to be certain things at certain times, and sometimes that's just not who you want to be. And so, I think that resonates with you in that way.
Yeah, the older I get, the more people want me to fit into a mold that I don't want to fit into.
More so than the TNA song. You never had to purchase those, so.
No, I did not. Nope.
So, I guess in the final analysis here,
the final countdown. Final countdown to New Year's. It's the final countdown.
Coquito countdown.
I mean, it is a coquito countdown. I don't know if I could do another one.
Hashtag
Hashtag one and done.
It'll be countdown to nap time if you have any more
one
coquito.
and done. When you put alcohol in something and you let it set for weeks? Yeah.
Well, that's what this coquito has been doing. It's been aging nicely.
Marinating.
So, why did you want to show me this neat movie?
I think because it just connects to my childhood so much. I remember watching it with my mom very vividly. I remember watching it every time it came on HBO, and it came on HBO a lot because it probably was cheap to go ahead and purchase, right, HBO? And I loved it, and I loved the soundtrack, and I own the soundtrack. I think I own 2 copies of the soundtrack with different covers. I just loved everything about it. I never didn't love it. So
I think you really just liked that flash dance sequence that they do at the beginning.
Wait till I make you watch Fast Forward. Forward, moving fast forward. There's a lot of dance movies. I think I have 2 of a Kind, which I don't think you've seen either. That's also a dance movie. There's 3 or 4 dance movies that I think I have on our list for you to watch.
All right.
Yeah. Forward,
Breakin'?
forward. Breakin', right?
Mm-hmm. Because I've seen Breakin' 2.
Moving. Electric Boogaloo.
Damn right.
Electric Boogaloo. How have you never seen Breakin' 1 if you've seen Breakin' 2?
Breakin' 2 was on all the time in the 90s.
Dude, but Breakin' is you have to understand how they all got together.
Is that really important? It didn't seem so in Breakin' 2. It just seemed
because it was they're just all together. But
Yeah.
you need to know how they got together.
It just seemed like, hey, we all dance, so we're together.
No.
We're a dancing
The
crew.
whole... No. Oh, my God. You've missed all the overarching themes.
Look, Ice-T there were overarching themes, really?
There was! It was about her white girl privilege.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh, now it sounds more interesting.
Oh, gosh.
Well, Ice-T was in Electric Boogaloo wearing his Zorro hat.
Electric Boogaloo.
So,
And now all of a sudden I want to sing Another One That Bites the Dust. I have no idea why. Dude, did it steal a sampling? Maybe that's why I'm saying
there is some similarity in
Just
there.
saying.
So I'm just curious, were you left with any lingering questions in Chorus Line? Was there anything where you're like, wait a minute,
No,
they
go
never...
fuck off with your Max Dugan bullshit that you're going to do right now. I already see where you're going. I see the joy on your fucking face.
That was actually...
And you can really stuff it. Don't go there, Parry Silcox. Don't. I will turn this shit right off.
I actually was not going there. I was saving that for even later.
Don't do it.
No,
I'm not left with any overarching questions.
No, I had one.
What?
Well, I just...
Oh, Jesus. He baited me. You see how that happened?
Well, no, seriously. The minute that Paul gets hurt, they're sending him to the top knee guy in the city.
Yeah, because it's really screwed.
Yeah, but my question is, does Paul have insurance? Nobody checks to see how Paul's going to pay for this, top guy on his knee. I mean,
there are much better regarding insurance and people paying for things.
Is Zach going to pay for it?
I don't know. Maybe Zach told him to go to that doctor. Who knows?
Yeah, I was just a little confused.
He's like, I'm a baller choreographer. I can do whatever I want.
Well, and he seemed to have taken a liking to him after he revealed, his deep, dark secrets. So
of dancing in kabuki theater.
Yes, which is a great story.
Or drag. Is it really drag?
Yeah. Yeah,
but he was in a kabuki getup.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So I thought that was one of the most affecting parts.
Well, all of it is really when they tell their stories. And I understand that's why people got so agitated that all of their stories weren't just the focus. But I'm telling you, as a film, it couldn't be just the focus. There's no way. You have to have multiple dynamics going on, and it's just not enough. I hate to say it like that. Seeing it on Broadway is very different than seeing a film, and the audience that you're trying to reach is very different.
Well, and I think that, again, it's the same thing we used to talk about a lot in a number of classes I was in, was about the translation of a book to film, is that they are two distinctly different things.
You're two mediums, two different audiences sometimes, and you're trying to, in a film, you're just trying to cast a wider net. And in order to cast a wider net, some things have to be watered down.
But I think it was David O. Selznick who did a lot of adaptations for film who had said, people will tolerate leaving certain things out for time, but if you make major changes and subtractions and additions in particular, people are going to have problems with that.
Agreed. And that's what they did have problems with. I mean, I say watch the movie and make your own decision regarding how you really feel about it and treat it as something very standalone.
Yeah.
Because I definitely think, and if you go see the play after, then you should probably treat it as a standalone. I didn't. I thought it would just be just like the movie. So I walked away feeling more disappointed.
That's right. Remember, everyone, comparisons kill.
Okay, and on that note, I think we should wrap up. Yeah, right.
I would agree, yes.
Please rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast. Check out our website, youhaven'tseenwhatmovie.com. And check out our social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, You Haven't Seen What Movie. And let us know what you think via email. Hey, there's a link on our website, or you can let us know via social media, whatever medium you want. And that's all for now.
Yeah, and happy birthday to Allison Reed and Sharon Brown.
And to you, Parry Silcox.
Mm-hmm. And you, Joelle Lee Silcox.
That's right.
Who finally had found time to change your name.
Change my name. Yay! It only took 3 years of marriage. You're stuck with me now. I'm a Silky too.
Well, and hey, being as the time of year it is, do you think maybe Max Dugan is Santa Claus?
Fuck off. So remember.
Be kind.
Yes, please be kind.
And don't mention Max Dugan.
Rewind. Bye.
Bye. Hey, he shows up with a suitcase full of money and buys a whole bunch of stuff. It's like Santa Claus.
Why is this our running joke? It's not even funny.
But I think Max Dugan is fascinating.
You're so weird.
I am utterly fascinated by Robards and his performance as Max Dugan. I can't get it out of my head.
Obviously.
Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plain.